Hey everyone, this is Jonathan Mehta Stein coming to you live for the first solo edition of Lunch with California Common Cause, a weekly opportunity for us to update our members and others interested in California's democracy. I'm coming to you from my guest bedroom / home office, where I come to you every single week, Wednesdays at noon. So this week it's just me solo. We're going to go with guests every other week going forward. Thank you for joining us. We're experimenting with this platform and this way of connecting with our members. We're fine-tuning things as we go. Please ask questions in the comment as I provide this week's update on what's going on in the California democracy space, with an emphasis this week on voting and on redistricting. But first, I want to mention that our Student Organizing and Activist Retreat, which is an annual summer event called SOAR, Student Organizing and Activist Retreat, is moving online this year. And we have an opportunity to reach young people, young leaders, young activists, young organizers through Zoom and through other digital or virtual means. So if you have a young person in your life, or if you yourself are checking this out because you're a student interested in democracy and improving our democracy, building a democracy that includes everyone, you can check out our website, commoncause.org/California/student-activism. Again, commoncause.org/student-activism. And there you'll find out more about SOAR and how we're leading it in an online format for the first time. SOAR, by the way, is an amazing experience. Usually it's a multi-day in-person retreat. We cover all costs for every student involved. And it's an opportunity for young people to learn about California Common Cause's work, our issues, and become leaders to build the next generation of people who are passionate about democracy reform and so on. I've taken part in too many to count at this point, going back a decade. And they're always really powerful experiences for the people who organize them and participate as speakers like myself, but also, and more importantly, for the students. This year, we're moving online and we'll see how it goes. Our hope is that it will be a meaningful experience for the students. And we'll be back next summer doing it in person again. Okay, so thanks for joining us. Again, I'm Jonathan Mehta Stein. I'm the new executive director of California Common Cause. I've been in the role for about 6 weeks, and it has been a total honor to be in this job and leading this critically important organization. I want to share with you some work that we're doing on voting and on redistricting, and this will bring you up to speed on all democracy news in California for this week, and you can talk to your friends and sound like the smartest person in the virtual room at your virtual happy hour on Friday or Saturday. Okay, first, as most of you may know, there was an executive order from the governor's office in early May that mandated that every registered active voter in California receive a vote by mail ballot before the November election. That executive order, we would be the first, and right now I believe we're the only state in the nation that is responding to COVID by mandating that every single registered voter receive a vote by mail ballot, whether they request it or not. Other counties are making a related shift. They're sending every registered voter a vote by mail application that the voter can then receive, fill out, and mail back. That poses a number of hurdles for people, including those who have been displaced by this crisis, people who are housing insecure, young people, renters, and others who don't have regular access to mail. It also requires that people who do have regular access to mail get something from the government, a super boring piece of elections paperwork, recognize what it is, fill it out, and send it back. And as everybody knows, every election cycle, there are millions and millions of people who just miss paperwork from the elections office or from some other government office. So sending them a vote by mail ballot, a big ballot in the mail, is probably superior, we hope, to sending them a vote by mail application. That executive order by the governor is being challenged in court by 2 lawsuits, one by Darrell Issa, the former congressman from San Diego who is running for Congress again in 2020, and one by the RNC and the California Republican Party. Civic engagement and civil rights groups, including California Common Cause, rushed to join the state in defense of the executive order. But just yesterday, we found out by the court that our attempt to join the lawsuit as defendants has been denied, and instead we're going to move forward almost certainly as amicus. We're going to submit an amicus brief to the Supreme Court, to the Federal District Court. The second executive order from the governor came in early June, and that addresses in-person voting. Why is in-person voting important? You may be thinking to yourself, if we're sending every single California voter a vote by mail ballot, isn't that enough? Aren't we providing people a safe and reliable way to cast their ballot? The fact of the matter is that that a huge percentage of California voters either need or simply want an in-person voting opportunity, right? So first and foremost, voters with disabilities report in huge numbers that they intend to use an accessible voting machine at polling places. Voters with limited English skills report at higher rates than other voters that they intend to vote in person because they can receive the assistance of bilingual poll workers and receive translated ballots. The Latino community votes in person at much higher rates than other racial and ethnic groups. LA County votes in person at much higher rates than other regions and counties. So there are simply some groups of people who either need or simply want to vote in person. And providing an accessible, inclusive election in November 2020 means we provide multiple safe, accessible opportunities for voters to cast their ballots. So the second executive order from the governor was issued on June 3rd. It mandates one in-person voting site for every 10,000 voters. Those in-person voting sites have to be open for 3 days before Election Day, so Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Election Day. This will be the first time California has ever had a statewide early vote period at every voting site. In the past, it's been available at very limited sites. In some counties, it's been available a little bit more broadly. This will be the first time where an early vote period is universally accessible across all California counties. The executive order also mandates that there be one ballot drop-off for every 15,000 voters available for 1 month before Election Day. And that's critically important in the event that there are delays or disruptions of service at USPS. It's also the case that we've seen in other in other states like Colorado that have moved to a new election system in which everyone receives a vote by mail ballot and people can either mail that back, they can vote at an in-person voting location called a vote center, or they can drop their ballot off at a drop box. That Colorado model is very similar to what we call in California the Voters' Choice Act. Some big California counties and some small California counties have adopted the Voters' Choice Act in the last few election cycles. But as of now, it's 15 counties out of 58. So most counties do not use the Voters' Choice Act. That was really rooted in the Colorado model. The data from Colorado shows that over time, more and more people use ballot drop boxes. People have a certain amount of suspicion about mail and about the reliability of mail. And their view is, if I can drop this ballot in a mailbox, or I can drop this ballot in a ballot drop box that will be serviced by the elections office and go directly to the elections department, I would rather use that option. And so we're glad to see the governor's executive order mandating availability of ballot drop boxes. This system that I just outlined, a system in which there are consolidated in-person voting sites, there are ballot drop boxes, and there's this universal early vote period, that is in fact optional. Some counties can, if they want, continue to offer polling places as before. Those would be a larger number of polling places. They're not going to be able to consolidate, and they're only available on Election Day instead of for this early vote period. We are still waiting to see which counties will stick with that original model, the standard California model that we've been using for years, and we'll see what happens. It is going to be a challenge for California voters because there will be a patchwork of systems in place in November. Most people, well, no, I will say this: every California voter will receive a vote by mail ballot. But what in-person options are available to them will be something of a patchwork. And that's why voter education is going to be so critically important and also very challenging. The executive orders are critical to ensuring the November 2020 election is safe and is accessible in the middle of a public health pandemic. But we actually think there are ways to go further. And that's why we are in support of two pieces of legislation. AB 860, a Berman bill from Assemblymember Berman, which codifies the first executive order regarding universal access to vote by mail ballots, but actually goes further. It ensures universal access to remote accessible vote by mail, which is a method of voting that allows primarily in the past people with disabilities and overseas voters to be able to access a ballot. That will be now available to every single voter come November. We talked about that last week in our conversation with Fred Neeson and Paul Spencer from Disability Rights California. And you can go to our YouTube page, which is you can go to YouTube and search for California Common Cause TV, and you'll find our YouTube page where we have all of our past conversations, and you can see the one we did last week about access for voters with disabilities. The AB 860 will also guarantees that every single voter can use something called ballot tracks to track their vote by mail ballot through the process to make sure that their ballot is being counted. And it extends the deadline for receiving and counting a vote by mail ballot. So as long as a ballot in November is postmarked or voted on before Election Day, it can get to the elections office within 17 days of Election Day and still be counted. Before, that period was 3 days. The reason for the extension is, again, because of a concern that USPS may see disruptions or delays in service. If you've been following the news, you know that USPS is under threat and underfunded. And so we're trying to prepare for the possibility that things take longer than they have in the past. All of the provisions of AB 860 apply for just the November 2020 election. And so we'll go back. We're going to have to sort through, what does normal look like when we hold elections in 2022 statewide. AB 860, I'm happy to report, was signed by the governor in last week. It is a major achievement for the voting rights and civic engagement organizations, coalition that we work in with lots of great partner organizations. We're very, very proud to have worked on for the passage towards the issuance of the 2 executive orders and towards the passage of AB 860. There's one more bill, SB 423, which is a bill from Senator Umberg. And if you're careful, if you're interested in the specific names of the bill authors, congratulations, you are a democracy nerd of the highest order, and we should give you a special pin or a special lightsaber of some kind branded with California Common Cause. Thank you for caring that deeply. The SB 423 codifies the governor's second executive order regarding in-person voting sites, early vote period, ballot drop boxes, and so on. It also, like the other bill, goes further than the governor's executive order. It requires that elections officials conduct a voter education and outreach campaign, and it requires that the Secretary of State conduct a statewide voter education and outreach campaign to educate people about the fact that there will be changes for the November 2020 election. The real question, though, is what money will there be for the voter education and outreach campaigns that SB 423 would mandate. SB 423, by the way, has not yet passed the legislature, and we're fighting for its passage. But if we're going to mandate that every county and the Secretary of State lead a voter education and outreach campaign, they're going to need money for that. And this is a really difficult budget environment to find state funds. Yesterday, you got an email from us at California Common Cause calling on you to participate in the National Safe Voter Now campaign. So that email, which you may have missed, the subject line was Californians Need Answers. And it goes through a lot of what I'm discussing today in brief, but more to the point, it asks you to take action. It asks you to participate in the National Safe Voting Now campaign, which is a coalition, national coalition, which Common Cause helps to run. And if you click through, it will give you an opportunity to write an email to legislative leadership and to the governor calling for state funding for voter education, in addition to other policy changes that I've already discussed. So please take a look at your email and take action if you can. If you haven't gotten that email, you may not be on our email list, and go to commoncause.org/California to sign up. Okay, that's the update on voting rights. There's and election administration. There's a whole lot there. I just packed a ton of information into about 10 minutes. If you have any questions or want clarification, please put your question in the comments, and I'll tackle it when we're done with this next section on redistricting. Okay, so as I'm sure you know, California Common Cause has been a leader on redistricting, independent, fair redistricting for multiple decades now. We were the primary supporters of the California Citizen-run Redistricting Commission, the Independent Redistricting Commission, which was created by ballot measure in 2008. And since then has been such a wild success that other states have adopted the California model. We are in the process now of selecting the commissioners for the second CRC. So the 2010 CRC was a smashing success, and now we're building the 2020 CRC. The 3 auditors from the state auditor's office went through the process of vetting thousands of applications and got it down to 60 incredibly qualified applicants, 20 Democrats, 20 Republicans, and 20 other or no party preference. The 60 are in front of the legislature now. The legislative leadership now has the opportunity to strike. Both Democrats and Republicans in the legislature have the opportunity to strike a small number of applicants in each pool for a total of 24 potential strikes. So that pool of 60 may be reduced by 24 in the next couple of days. We're waiting on those legislative strikes now. And they're a lot like jury selection. There's no cause needed. The leadership of the legislature can strike people for any reason. Once we're down to the post-strike pool, they will use ping pong balls to select the first 8 commissioners on the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. That's on July 2nd, next Thursday. And those first 8 will then choose the remaining 6 from the pool to ensure a balance in the commission of geographic diversity, of ideological diversity or party representation, of racial and ethnic diversity, of gender diversity, and so on, right? And so we're trying to build a CRC that looks like the state of California and can understand all California's diverse communities, and that's why we have the process we have. So within the next week to 2, we will have the second ever Citizens Redistricting Commission in California, which is a huge accomplishment. We have been supporting / watchdogging the state auditor's office as they do the work of standing up the commission, things like issuing RFPs and finding additional staff and so on. Watchdogging all of that is really detailed stuff, but it's important to get it all right. And really detailed stuff that's important to get right is sort of California Common Cause's brand. So we're on it, working really hard on that. There's this one big issue, which is the fact that the state constitution has a deadline in it for completing the redistricting work of August 15th of 2021. Now you might be thinking, what's wrong with that? Because of the delayed census, redistricting data is going to get to the states much later than anticipated. And the state will actually have the data it needs to do the redistricting, to begin the redistricting work after the constitutional deadline for completing the redistricting work. So we've got a huge problem on our hands. We educated partners statewide about this problem. We liaised with legislative leadership to make sure they would fix this problem without attempting to weaken the commission or its independence. And then we submitted an amicus brief to the state Supreme Court. We wrote in basically a week. Thank you to Kecker Van Nest, a pro bono law firm that assisted us with that. The legislature decided the best way to handle this problem with the state constitution was to file a petition with the Supreme Court. And when we realized that the legislature was going to file an action that would fix the deadline issue without attempting other changes, without weakening the commission in any way, without shortening the period available for public participation input, the legislature did the right thing 100%. We filed an amicus brief together with Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and the League of Women Voters, because the 3 of us were major supporters of the commission in 2008. And basically, we co-signed the effort by the state legislature to fix this problem. And we told the state Supreme Court, this attempt in front of you is legit, it's kosher, it makes sense, it's in the best interest of fair districts, and it is not an attempt at monkey business, essentially. And so we've gotten a positive indication for the state Supreme Court that they understand the need for a simple common sense reform of that redistricting deadline. And we're optimistic that we're going to get a good outcome from the state Supreme Court. Again, it's very technical, highly detailed stuff, but it's critically important that we get it right in order to make independent, fair redistricting work in California. And that sort of work is right up our alley at California Common Cause. That's it for this week. That's all the voting rights and redistricting work that we've got on our plate, and I wanted to update you on. I'm going to check now to see if we have any questions. It looks like we do not have any questions, and so I bored everybody. Maybe next week when we have a guest, they'll be more interesting than I am, and we'll have more questions. Okay, well, thanks everyone for checking in with us and for watching this weekly roundup of California democracy news. It's a pleasure to be with you. And if you have any questions in the future, you can always find us on our social media, on Facebook, on Twitter. We even have an Instagram that I've never seen, but check that out as well. Thanks very much for joining us. It's a pleasure. Signing off from California Common Cause.